When I stepped outside of the automatic glass doors separating work from life today, there was only one thing on my mind: going home and relaxing. After pulling an early morning shift that lasted 7 hours, especially being the night owl I am and not even thinking about bed until the sun is almost up, I was ready to dive into bed and sleep for a couple of hours. Trudging down the expansive parking lots, all measuring up side by side, I made my way toward the bus stop. Not having my own vehicle never seemed to really be a problem until the days came where I felt too tired to even make the 5-minute walk between work and the main street ahead. As I came along the treacherously sloped curb, littered with loose rocks and slanting cobblestones, I took note of a man in his early 30s standing near the end of the makeshift path. He appeared bedraggled in an old t-shirt bearing stains, baggy jeans, and a dirty hooded, unzipped sweatshirt. His thin shoulders hunched forward and his head was bent forward, almost in complete obliviousness to his own existence, as though he tried to will himself to disappear. In his hands he held a cardboard sign: "Need work or side/odd jobs, no job, no food, no home." A phone number was listed after the text. Immediately, I began going over my options, my escape routes. I admit, I sought a way to avoid this man who seemed so helpless standing on the side of the street with a soiled, red backpack lying near his feet. I suppose that all of his belongings, anything that he could keep, everything that was precious to him, was stuffed into that little bag holding more than it was meant to contain. I mentally scolded myself for seeking a way out of the situation presented before me. The man looked up as I approached, his eyes hardly glancing over me. "Hey, how's it going?" he asked casually. "It's going okay," I replied, slowing my steps. "At least that makes one of us." He half smiled with a little tongue-in-cheek humor peeking through his blatant despair. I stopped alongside him. "Rough day." I bit my lip, regretting the words solely because of how stupidly insensitive they must have seemed. The man laughed again, almost ruefully. "You could say that. Man, it's just so hard, you know? I'm jobless, homeless, familyless, and probably soon gonna be friendless, too. It's like I stand out here and everybody just assumes that you could do more to help yourself." I finished, nodding my head in understanding. Of course I understood. I was guilty of thinking the same exact thing when I saw people holding signs on the side of the road. It was a long while ago, but I imagine the thought has crossed more than just my mind. He smirked, shifting his feet and adjusting his sign. "Exactly. It's like I lose my house and suddenly I've lost my morals, too. Nobody wants to help or talk to me because I don't have somewhere to live, like I'm suddenly not the same person I was. Because people don't understand, and they don't offer up a bit of compassion. They judge." I frowned at this. It's true, after all. Everybody is judged for what they own, what job they have, and not who they are. Right? He exclaimed. "I'm trying, it's just so hard. It's humiliating standing out here with this sign." The cardboard waved in one hand before he resumed his pose, holding it face out for drivers to possibly see. But I really don't know what to do anymore. Contemplating for a few moments, we stood in silence. The 2 o'clock traffic provided a lulling background noise filler until I finally spoke again. "You know, my work is hiring right now. And so is the Halloween store next to it. That's only temporary, I know, but it'd be something." His eyes skeptically glanced in the general direction from which I had come, wrinkles crinkling. "I could try it. It's worth trying. I've applied everywhere I could think of, but nobody wants someone who ain't got a permanent address." I smiled lightly. "You never know. Some employers might be more sympathetic than others." He thanked me. I began to head for my stop again when he asked me the time. When I told him, he asked me a favor. Would I come get him a few minutes before the bus was supposed to arrive so he could collect his things? "I tend to wanna just zone out while I'm holding this thing," he added, holding his sign up briefly. "It's not something I really wanna think about, like no." I consented that I would let him know and walked to the sheltered stop. Sitting on the bench, I fished out some singles and stuffed them into my pocket. I'd forgotten about how tired I felt after my shift. Forgot how my feet had ached walking down the black-topped series of parking lots. Ignored that I really just wanted to go home and sleep. I kept wondering if maybe there was something I could do to actually help this guy. I didn't have much cash on me, nothing significant enough to get him something to eat. Standing, I bustled back over to where the man stood, just as the bus turned the corner and made its way down a busy street. "Hey! The bus is early," I shouted to him, pointing at the large vehicle sitting in wait behind a line of cars currently hindered by a red light. He sprung to life from his near statuesque and melancholy stance, hoisting up his red backpack and threw it over his shoulder. One hand fished into his pocket, seeking change for the bus, the other clinging to the cardboard sign and the strap of his backpack as though they were his only lifelines. The bus pulled up to my stop, and as I stepped on, I glanced over my shoulder, then to the driver. "I'm paying for him, too. He told me I didn't have that he thought he might have enough change. I told him not to worry about it. He called me a silly girl, but thanked me all the same. When we sat, he put away his sign and pulled out a prepaid cell phone. There's a number that's on my caller ID that I can't recognize, but I only have 36 seconds left on my minutes. You wouldn't. Could I please use your phone to call and find out what number it is?" The older woman sitting on the bench seats across from us was staring hard at me. I wondered what she was thinking as I handed my cell phone to the homeless man sitting beside me. I would imagine that she was disgusted. I could almost read it on her face. Keeping my eyes to myself, only half listening to the one-sided conversation I could hear, I kept myself aware enough to make sure that the man didn't suddenly try to hop out of the bus at a stop with my phone in hand. I'm not the sort to trust people easily, and while I regret thinking such a thing, it was just an instinctual thought. I lent my phone to a total stranger. At that point, I wondered, what if it's just a ruse and he follows me home? What if I can't get rid of him after this and he wants to be friends or something? I hated myself for that instance. How cruel things can simply float through my head while I was trying to do the right thing. Forcing the thoughts away, I turned in my seat to find him holding my phone out back to me. It was a call for a side job. Tomorrow at noon. If I do a good job, maybe they'll keep me on. I smiled. Genuinely. That's good. He smiled back and pulled the yellow wire to signal the driver that his stop was coming up. Standing, the man gave me a nod and thanked me before the bus lurched into a shaking halt. I watched as he stepped off and headed toward a church, where I assume was his shelter for the night. His steps appeared to have a bit more hope in them. I leaned back into my seat, lips still stretched one side to another. Perhaps it was just the start of one good day for him, and many more to follow. Perhaps it was the day his luck would change.